So I decided to do things a little differently for this video. I decided to show my face for a rare occasion. So we've all heard of lost civilizations like Plato's Atlantis, which was just an allegory, of course. The mythical lost city of El Dorado, which is most likely just a very exaggerated legend. And even some more esoteric ones like Lemuria, which was originally just a hypothetical lost continent theory to explain lemur fossils across different parts of the Indian Ocean. But this was just before we knew about plate tectonics. But then it quickly devolved into more esoteric things about the origin of humanity and lost civilizations by other people, and became very, very schizophrenic. But then there's one lost civilization that was created with the sole purpose of adding on to an elaborate 30-year-old scam created by a man who made his fortune rambling about aliens. And that civilization today is Ratanabá. So let's take a look at it. And it's pretty much completely unknown to most of the Anglophone world, since almost all the online sources for it are in Portuguese. But luckily I know a Brazilian who helped with some of that stuff in terms of translating and finding obscure Portuguese news sources. Before we start, I have to apologize in advance to any Portuguese speakers. I'm going to butcher pretty much all these names. I'm probably not going to pronounce a single one right, but oh well, let's just roll with it anyways. So the earliest mention I can actually find of this supposed lost city online only dates back to about early 2020. Where did it originate, you may ask? Well, it comes from a man whose name I'm not gonna try to properly pronounce, but we'll just call him Urandir for this video, which I'm sure I'm still pronouncing wrong. But now this Urandir guy has claimed he's been actually researching this lost city for decades. So to me, that just sounds like he completely pulled out of his ass, or maybe some other dude actually came up with the theory and he's just rolling with it. Either way, I can't find anyone prior to him mentioning it, so let's just assume it's his. Now, Urandir has been around for quite some time. He's made his rounds in the Brazilian media quite a few times over the years. In fact, any Brazilians who watch this for some reason may already know a lot of the stuff I'm about to say. But for everyone else, this Urandir guy can only be described as a lifelong con artist. And he's been around for quite a long time. He was born in 1963, and it's very hard to find much mentions of his life prior to 1997, at least online. So let me just tell you some of the interesting things he claims about himself from his earlier days. He says at 13 he was talking to aliens. At 23 he healed a car crash victim with his magical healing powers. And he also says he's a psychic. So he's a really interesting fellow, you see. Now I can't find any explicit mention of what exactly he was doing for all these years, but at some point he must have built up a little fan base. Because in 1997, he established a pod town. And yes, I mean pod town, quite literally. This town is a part of his front organization, the Daquila Institute, which isn't affiliated with any actual real academic institution whatsoever. And this institute publishes all types of completely insane pseudoscience nonsense and insane ramblings. It's really quite beautiful. But you might be wondering, where did he get all this money to at least fund these projects, at least initially? Well, when he was establishing this little town and institute, he was selling bonds for it. Each bond went for about 1,500 Brazilian real each. Now you gotta keep in mind that back in the late 90s, the Brazilian real was somewhat close to the value of the American dollar. So this was actually a lot of money. But in 2000, he was arrested for trying to sell land under very misleading pretenses. Now, what were these misleading claims he was making about the land to try and sell it for very exorbitant amounts of money? Well, let me try to decipher what he said. Breaking it down, he essentially said this. Because of its location, the magnetic field inflection makes the atmosphere more energized and recharges your spirit battery. Yes, he's basically saying the land he was selling was fucking magic or some shit. But point is, this arrest didn't last for long. He was quickly free, blah, blah, blah. He also was regularly conducting these little alien tours he had across his land in the region, Mato Grosso do Sul, where he would show off all the extraterrestrial and supernatural stuff that this land was supposedly attracting. which basically just consisted of his employees just throwing little special pebbles up in the air from the bushes in the dark, and then say it's like magic space rocks the aliens were sending, make other weird noises, flashing light, all the, standard little party tricks, smoking mirrors. And this was all presented as 100% real. And he still runs stuff like this to this very day. But of course, not everyone's a gullible fucking moron. So I found a document from 2002 of other notable Brazilian UFO-ologists basically denouncing him as a scam artist. And that's quite the accomplishment, because all these other people were also conspiracy theorists and other weird fringe type people, and even he was too much for them. And in 2010, a Brazilian TV network sent some reporters to essentially try and capture and even potentially interview this supposed alien named Bilu he had on his property. And there's actually footage of this, and it's really quite beautiful. But let's take a look at this footage.
Mostra o momento em que Bilu dá salto para a frente.
Na cabeça, né?
Várias vezes, os integrantes do projeto pedem que a nossa equipe não ligue qualquer tipo de iluminação.
Você vai conseguir acender a luz, Bilu?
Apaga a tua.
Bilu diz que quer dar recado.
Qual a sua mensagem para a Terra, Bilu?
Apenas que você conhecimento.
O contato foi de...
But there are some images, screenshots of the supposed alien that have been enhanced. Let's take a good look at what the supposed alien was. Yeah, that right there, that's real. You can't dispute that. That's definitely not a man in a weird suit in the fucking bush. Absolute proof right there. Give this man a medal. So I actually found out in the process of editing this that in 2018, he also made a flat Earth documentary. Convex Earth documentary. And in this hotel he owns, he has a model of this Earth. Amazing, I know. But that's enough about Urander himself. Let's try to talk about the actual city, the real core of this video, at least the thing I wanted to talk about. Now, the city is just a small part of his little front organization's wacky shenanigans, but let's see what they themselves claim about it. And what I'm about to read you is directly from their website. This is their official statement. A mystery of the Amazon forest that the Daquila Institute has been exploring for more than 30 years is called Ratanabá, an ancient city built more than 450 million years ago by the highly advanced Marili civilization. After a space flood 14,000 years ago, Ratanabá was flooded with silt and mud. The Amazon rainforest grew is in quotation marks for some reason, on the site, hiding Ratanabá from the surviving human civilization. Some representatives of the Daquila Institute, headed by Urander, gained access to this ancient site with the help of the multidimensional beings of the so-called 49 races. They were directed to the very entrance of the city and began to explore it. Oh, okay, sure. So, who are these 49 races, these interdimensional space beings? Well, they also have a little section about that. The 49 races, our partners, aim to make a concrete difference on Earth. It is said that there is a group of extraterrestrials known to humans as the Anunnaki. They've been running this evil show on a planet for a long time. They are the force behind the groups that we know by different names, such as the Cabal, the Illuminati, the 13 families, the rulers of the world, the controllers of the world, etc. The Anunnaki are the force behind all these people. All of the aboves are servants of the Anunnaki. In Brazil, DMT is technically legal for certain spiritual purposes, because various different indigenous groups use DMT plants for shaman stuff. So I wonder, do you think Urander wrote this while on a full-blown DMT trip in some shack in the woods? I mean, I hope so. That's fucking awesome. But anyways, they also claim that this advanced, lost alien people, whatever, gave them advanced technologies. Of course, these technologies are conveniently never shown. And Mr. Urander also claims he can regularly talk with them. Okay, then. They say that this lost city has tunnels underground connecting all parts of the world. and that they essentially established all civilization. Miranda also claims that this random old historic Portuguese fort, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, is connected to the underground tunnels that lead to Ratanabá and other places. And of course, these tunnels were also conveniently never found by anyone. Now, all this is completely insane, of course, and most people probably don't believe any of this crap, but Brazil is not exactly the best educated country, and combined with easy internet access, you can see why some people might fall for it. But obviously, no one important would, believe this shit. See, look at this irrelevant, random-ass dude on Twitter. Like this Mario Frias guy, probably just some random-ass Brazilian celebrity. You shouldn't take any serious shit from celebrities. They say stupid crap all the time. So let's look up who this dude even is. Mario Frias. Special Secretary of Culture from 2020 to 2022. Oh my, he was an at the time Brazilian cabinet member. So we're having actual high-ranking government employees believe this crap. This would be like if our Minister of Culture just randomly came out one day and just announced, out of nowhere, that there's a lost alien civilization fucking super city on Ellesmere Island and fucking none of it. Now, all this, schizo posting from the Dacula Institute and Uranda Brantatamba, it's fun and all, but he's not the only person who talks about this theory. And as far as I know, he's the originator of it, but if anyone can find anything otherwise that shows it's a different source, then be my guest. But it's very clearly not a unified theory. There's a lot of other people who ramble about it, kind of like a Brazilian Atlantis. They got all other types of wacky theories and lore about it. But there are some things that stay relatively consistent. Most seem to all agree it's between 600 to 400 million years old. But it seems Urander is the only one that really heavily emphasizes that the civilization was aliens. Most others seem to insinuate and even sometimes outright say that the civilization was actually human, and others just maybe imply that aliens helped them. But regardless, most of the others seem to at least believe that it was populated by humans. So that's what makes the 600 to 400 million year old mark quite funny to me, because 600 million years ago would place this in the middle of the Ediacaran. This would have been before the first known complex multicellular animal. So that's pretty great. And also, the atmosphere would have been completely unbreathable by human standards back then. And if we go by 450 million years ago, it still places it around the end of the Ordovician, which the atmosphere still would have been pretty much unbreathable for modern humans, and most complex animals were in the ocean. I don't know, maybe this means that the fucking Pentacopterus and Orthoceras built the goddamn thing. But one pretty common point of divergence with this theory is that many seem to have completely different dates when it ended and how. Of course, you listen to Urander himself on his website, he says 14,000 years ago with some weird-ass mud flood shit. Others claim that it ended around 66 million years ago with the same asteroid that killed the non-avian dinosaurs. And one random guy I saw on a podcast claimed that it actually very much lasted into the human era, and that the Spanish saw it in all its glory, but quickly, after just a couple hundred years, completely vanished from smallpox. So, I guess this turbo-advanced civilization, just never developed a fucking vaccine. But of course, what the hell would I know? I'm just using cringe-ass historical consensus and silly things like geology and the fossil record and physics. No, what we want is cool, hip, esoteric evidence. Speaking of that, let's look at some other evidence. See, now, originally, I did kind of want to talk about a lot of their bizarre claims as proof, but the problem is, they're all essentially the same. They just take different aerial photos or aerial scans or other types of scans of like the Brazilian jungle and other environments and occasionally find random structures. But of course, all the structures and stuff that have been found are not some like turbo advanced unknown technology or civilization. There's like random temples, small structures, old towns that are pretty cool for an archaeologist. They're just clearly misrepresenting actual like archaeological studies. If there was a super advanced civilization, you'd think we'd find more than just some rocks and lines in the ground. And you would think that this super advanced technology would not be so easily overtaken by fucking foliage and dirt. So in conclusion, why does anyone believe this insane stuff? Well, it's hard to say. You can ask that question to any insane theory. For Urander, he doesn't actually believe it. It's just part of his weird cult scam shit that he's been trying to pull for decades. But my personal favorite rationale for, I guess, justifying why this civilization, supposedly exists, one guy randomly used it as a way to explain current, I guess, political events in the Amazon.
Todos vocês estão cansados de saber que a floresta amazônica é muito cobiçada por diversos países, diversos líderes mundiais e até mesmo empresários bilionários como Elon Musk, um dos pioneiros da colonização do planeta vermelho Marte e um dos homens mais ricos deste planeta esférico que nós chamamos de Terra. Para quem não sabe, recentemente o governo brasileiro e Elon Musk assinaram um acordo sobre a criação de uma rede de satélites, adivinha onde? Na Amazônia. E se eu falasse para vocês que o verdadeiro motivo pelo qual a Amazônia é tão cobiçada vai mais além do que riquezas e recursos naturais? E se o verdadeiro motivo fosse algo que mudasse para sempre o rumo da história da humanidade, ou pior, fosse algo que reescrevesse a história da humanidade?
Extracting resources, timber, metals, other stuff, all irrelevant, doesn't matter. It's all about getting that lost super tech. Well, that about does it for this video. I mostly just made this for fun because a Brazilian friend of mine brought this city to my attention and the whole weird theory and drama surrounding it, and I thought it was very funny. And quite a shame that the Anglo world doesn't know about it, because it's actually quite hilarious, all the bizarre things they claim about it. But with that, I hope you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to hear more wacky ramblings and other stuff I have planned.